Good afternoon. Once again, I'm Rob Campbell, Senior Manager, Conservation Strategies for WHC. Thank you for joining our concluding session of WHC Connect. We've reached over 600 of you through this virtual event, and we hope that you've been inspired, enlightened, and engaged. Later today, you'll receive an email with a short survey asking for your opinion on the event. As always, your thoughts and comments will be greatly appreciated. So please take a quick moment to fill out that survey. Finally, before we start this session, thank you to our sponsor, Lehigh Hanson. And again, thank you for joining this final session, which will be focused on STEM education. And thank you to our three excellent panelists, whom I'll introduce in just a moment. As most of you are likely all too familiar with the concept of STEM, I will just say that today we look to have a practical conversation surrounding the motivations and execution of education efforts that serve to further our audience's literacy and proficiency in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. According to the U.S. Department of Education, all young people should be prepared to think deeply and to think well so that they have the chance to become the innovators, educators, and leaders who can solve the most pressing challenges facing the U.S. and the world, both today and tomorrow. This sentiment is increasingly echoed by countries across the globe, as they understand that the challenges being referred to here are far-reaching and pervade not only the Earth's natural environment, but issues such as national security, economic competitiveness, and social equality. Today, we are joined by three representatives of companies that are meeting these challenges head-on through their own unique corporate STEM education efforts. Molly Borst, who has served a decade with BASF on its STEM education efforts, and now works as manager of STEM education from their North American headquarters in Florham Park, New Jersey. Meredith Crouch, a chemical engineer with Ontario Power Generation, based in St. Catharines, Ontario, who has spent her entire career working in the environmental field, is a certified Ontario wetlands evaluator, and for the past 10 years has been intimately involved with the company's biodiversity and education programs. And to round out our panel, we welcome Jackson, Wyoming-based Sita Daavetilla, who works as Summit Materials Sustainability Manager, and over the past 7.5 years has been instrumental in bringing STEM education efforts to their various operating companies across North America. Welcome, Molly, Meredith, and Sita, and thank you all for your willingness to share your knowledge and experience today on our STEM education panel.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's apt that the final panel session of today is very forward-looking. STEM education, you know, as they say in the teaching world, you can touch the future, right? So I think it's very apropos that we're here discussing this today. But what I want to start off with is kind of start from the beginning and really ask what were, you know, each of your company's primary motivations initially to offer STEM education programs, and you know, have those motivations evolved since you initially implemented your program. So if we could, Molly, would you like to go first?
Sure thing. Thank you. And thanks again for having us here today. Looking forward to some great conversation. So back in 2010, BASF Corporation was looking to roll out our global program, our global education program, Kids Lab. And at the time, really just wanting to engage with students at a young age to really have them you know, have the hands-on ability to explore science, to get excited about it. So hopefully we can kind of maintain that excitement throughout, right? And so when these pre-K kindergarten students grow up, they have that fond memory of that thing they did that one time in a lab, right? So it has evolved over time. So it's not just our young learners that need the encouragement and the ability to have hands-on experiences in STEM, but also our middle school students and up into high school as well. So over time, you know, as an organization, we've realized that. So our Kids Lab program has been running for pre-K students through grade 5 and 6. This year is actually our 10-year anniversary of Kids Lab. So I've been with BASF on this program since the beginning. But since then, we've also implemented some programs for middle school students, as well as our Science Academy and Tech Academy for high school students. So really trying to meet the needs of students at every age to keep them excited, engaged, and hopefully want to pursue a career in STEM. So when we introduce those programs for the high school students, really want to focus on talent development, filling the talent pipeline, workforce development. So a lot of those programs touch career development. And so really just starting with the excitement, and then hopefully one day kind of keeping that excitement, nurturing it, and taking them all the way through a potential career.
Yeah, that's excellent. Those multiple touch points really reinforce that interest. And as we know from looking at the STEM pipeline, it is best to get to those young minds early and develop that interest. So thank you very much for sharing that. Sita, what were your primary motivations for your company, and have they changed?
So we really got into STEM education because we are in like a aggregates mining company. We also produce cement and ready mix and asphalt. And so I think one of the main reasons why we got involved is to frame the narrative around, who we are and what we do. So a lot of times people know about their local gravel pit and they have their opinions about it and this and that, but we really recognize that this was an opportunity to bring students onto our site, including their parents and teachers, and be able to give them information about who we are and what we do. And so we use our tours as an opportunity to be more transparent with our communities and really try to frame the narrative around who we are as a company. And we also love to talk about our environmental efforts and restoration work that we've done. We love to show off our big trucks, our big loaders, and all the other, fun equipment that's really exciting for the little people. And then, I want to second what Molly said. The talent pipeline is really critical. It's really important that kids know that we're there, that we're out, we're hiring out of community college, we're hiring out of trade schools. And so we really want to be a part of our communities. And I think getting involved on a regular basis is a really important part of why STEM has really become one of our main initiatives of our sustainability program.
Excellent. And I love something you said there as well with the, be involved in the communities and that place-based learning, because that's those students' hometowns and so forth, right? So it has that deeper level of meaning that can really grasp their attention and so forth. How about up at OPG, Meredith? What were kind of the primary motivations for OPG really engaging in STEM education and working with the community?
Well, Ontario Power Generation is a science-based company, and we also are situated in communities. So, and we like to be good corporate neighbors to those communities, and we like to, and as mentioned before, and I love that term, that the talent pipeline is really important to us, because the people growing up in those communities are our future employees potentially. So a lot of the same reasons that we're hearing there. It's all about being partners with our communities, about ensuring the education of the community about what we're doing, and so that they're more comfortable, because we also have some nuclear stations and things. So in particular, those stations need to be, but also with our hydroelectric, we need to speak to them about the safety aspects of these stations in their communities and on their waterways. So.
Excellent. And kind of sticking with that, today's panel, we have an energy provider, we have a chemical company, we've got an aggregates company. So, I think it's safe to assume that most people that work for you all are not trained educators, they're not teachers. So how do you go about finding those employees that have a knack for education or have a passion for working with STEM education? Meredith?
So at Ontario Power Generation, we do have our corporate relations group, and that group does tend to have a little bit more educational background in terms of communications and that sort of thing. But yeah, not everybody who's especially working with biodiversity. Our environment group is very heavily into the biodiversity programs, and they're not teachers. They're biologists and engineers and scientists, and so yeah, you find the passions of the individuals, and sometimes you find that even in your operations staff, and so you look for those people who have that passion and who want to share it, because they'll be able to communicate it well, because that passion will communicate it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you do have actually a lot of technical folks on the team, and I think, you know, many people from what I've observed has missed their calling as teachers. So this is a great outlet for them to get to at least play teacher a few times a year or so forth. And Sita, I've been to several of the Summit Materials sites and know that you have a wonderful group of kind of, you know, site champions and leaders that really do an excellent job at this. So how do you go about it at Summit, you know, kind of implementing these STEM education programs and finding the right person to do that?
Yeah, this is probably one of the bigger challenges I think that we face with our STEM programs. I think there's a couple of tools that we've used over the couple years. One of them is asking. I feel like multiple times we've been really surprised when we sort of gathered a group of employees together. We're like, okay, you know, we're going to start these STEM programs at your company, and you'll get somebody who's like, oh yeah, you know, I'm a scout leader and I actually like working with kids and I've done this, and nobody else knew about that part of that person's life. And so I think really asking your employees who might be interested in this might surprise you as to who might spark their interest. Another one, another aspect that we've done in other places where we haven't quite had the ones who stood up and said, hey, me, is appointing certain people and sort of using some of the leadership to help appoint them. And what we'll do is like put together a team of people, and then we'll say, hey, you've been appointed by the company president to do X, Y, and Z. Is that of interest to you? And generally, it is. You know, I think when the leadership gets involved and leadership really starts to say, hey, we think this is really important, would you help out with this? People, you know, like to step up to the plate in that regard. And when we've had those appointments, also, we kind of give them a term, a period of time. So they're not going to be the person out there doing that forever, but, you know, they're on a 2-year term or something like that. So those are some tools that we've used that I think have worked out well for us. But yeah, that's no easy task.
Absolutely, and one of the things that we talk about here at WHC all the time is, you know, STEM education projects and these projects in general really provide an opportunity and a platform for some employees that don't necessarily have a managerial role or a leadership role inside of the organization. Well, they can be the leader of an individual project and really shine through. So we see that all the time. You know, so everything sounds reasonably easy so far. You know, hey, here's 3 companies that have implemented these great STEM education projects across their company, but in truth, there are hurdles to implementing STEM education projects, as there are with implementing any type of project. So, Sita, let's stick with you. You know, what are some of the hurdles that you've had and encountered and basically had to overcome and clear?
Yeah, so Rob, I think our biggest hurdle is safety. You know, we're a mining company and there's no doubt about it. Taking a whole group of kids out on to an active mine site or formerly active mine site it's concerning, you know, and there's a lot of safety hurdles that we have to cross to get there. And then I also think there's sort of a culture shift that has to happen along with that as well. So a lot of companies are really, they're like, this is too big of a safety concern, we don't want to do it. And so we've really had to kind of help show them that this is, you know, it's worth going through and finding the right location that's safe for the kids. It's worth changing some of the operational aspects of the way that that site's working for the day or whenever these tours happen. Like, a lot of times, you know, we have to change truck routes or, you know, make sure there's no blasting or create a situation where we could do some blasting or something like that. So it's not easy to organize them. And I think the first time is definitely the hardest. But once you get in the flow and start to figure it out, it makes it a lot, you know, each time it gets easier. But I definitely think the biggest hurdle for us has been safety and really trying to make sure that our teams understand that it's valuable enough to go through the process of figuring it out, you know, figuring out how to make it safe, how to make it effective, how to make it fun for the kids and all that kind of stuff. And it takes work to do that, but it's worth it.
Absolutely. You know, we have companies come to us all the time that I think initially had those similar concerns, and we're able to showcase basically their peers are doing that. So, you know, they've figured out a way, so you can figure out a way as well. Meredith, have things been smooth sailing at Ontario Power Generation, or have you experienced a few hurdles and bumps in the road as well, implementing the STEM education programs, and how have you cleared those hurdles if you have?
Yeah, I think we definitely have, you know, safety is a very important thing for us too. So safety is something we always have to address. And then also, yeah, I'd say time and money come into those hurdles that we face. And I wouldn't say just in implementation, you face them sometimes in maintenance of a program. A lot of our sites have been certified for many years, some of them since 1997, and a program like that, you know, like there's a moment, you know, there's the ebbs and flows of the company's, you know, interests and money and this and that. So you have to be able to adjust your program to meet those things. But I'd say some of the things that we find help us to overcome those challenges are, you know, leveraging partnerships. You know, your partners are a big asset. And also leveraging employee enthusiasm and knowledge. So as I spoke earlier, you know, if you have somebody who's passionate about it, you know, they're going to put that extra effort in, they're going to push that extra push in, and they're also probably going to be able to help, you know, frame it in such a manner that it's going to sell within the company. And one of those ways that you can frame it is to you know, have really good communication internally and externally about the program, but especially when you're communicating internally, making sure that it's clear what the business sense and the business case of these programs are, and there are. You'll be able to find those, and if you are having trouble with that, yeah, talk to WHC or talk to some of WHC's other partners and certified programs.
I'd like to second that. And, you know, one of the other challenges that we faced was a lot of our sites were like, well, we don't really know what to talk about, or, you know, how we can even really add much. And so what we ended up doing was going to one of our industry agencies and finding a partner who could help us develop some curriculum. And so we developed, I think, 7 different modules. I think there's like 4 lessons, 7 modules, and they're all about rocks and the rock cycle and how rocks are part of our built world. And that's something that we're now giving to teachers and parents, other people who are working with kids, you know, in probably like basically 3rd through 6th grade window. And that is really giving us an opportunity to start the ball rolling of what's important to talk about. How are rocks a part of this world? How are rocks a part of our environmental world? And then when kids come on site, you know, we can really pick that up and say, oh, okay, you know, we know what you guys learned about with the curriculum, and we're going to show you like a hands-on part of this. So we're going to show you some cool fossils, and we're going to show you, you know, how rocks go into roads and what kind of rocks are important and what they're made out of and stuff like that. So that's been another hurdle for us. I think was really a really important one, was just kind of getting some actual curriculum built. to give us the confidence to be able to say, okay, yeah, this this is valuable. Here's what we're doing. And then also gives us a reason to go talk to teachers and say, hey, we've got this curriculum for you. We would love it if you'd be able to use this. And then in turn, you know, all we're asking for is maybe you guys could bring your kids on site. Obviously, probably not this year, but in future years.
Absolutely, and you know, having that flexibility really helps clear those hurdles. So we did receive a question, and thank you, Michelle, for submitting the question, and everyone else. If you do have questions, please use the chat box, and we'll get to as many as we can here. But this is kind of a direction that I was thinking of heading anyway. And Molly, if you speak to this first, is, you know, I think one of the biggest hurdles that we could have faced, and certainly an unforeseen challenge this year, has been the pandemic. You know, COVID has created a number of restrictions. So, you know, has BASF been able to kind of pivot their implementation of STEM education projects, and has it created any maybe unforeseen opportunities along the way?
Absolutely, there's definitely been a lot of opportunity during this kind of unfortunate circumstance. So the way we deliver our programs, you know, we have partners, so nonprofit organizations, science centers, museums, that'll help us deliver programming at their locations. So again, COVID hit and a lot of those locations closed, as well as a lot of our workforce is now working from home. So the moments where we'd have students on site, those opportunities go away, right? And then also, you know, employees going out to schools. Schools are shut down. So it's just getting whacked with three horrible changes in how we're delivering programs. But gave us an opportunity to kind of step back and say, really assess what we've kind of collected over 10 years in terms of digital virtual materials, right? So one of the items that we have that's associated with our kids lab is a virtual lab space. So you can't exactly put on a lab coat and glasses, but you can virtually do it and experiment online. So we have a link platform that's kind of set up in a kind of gaming sense, so very appealing to our young learners. But then also give you a kind of a WHC specific example. We have, one of our most favorite activities is pollinator gardens and installing those with students, right, and getting them out to the sites. So we did have a few of those events scheduled for the springtime when quarantine began. So as schools kind of we're developing mechanisms for folks to socially distance and come pick up lunches at schools. Families could stop by wearing their masks, and we're figuring, well, how can we get this message out? We can't have the students to the site. How can we still engage with them? So it gave us an opportunity where we can put together like care packages. So we had our employees help out. We have each student got a backpack and a lab apron and some safety glasses, and we're able to put together a modified lesson for them where they can do some pollinator trivia. So we're touching upon the lessons. Yeah, they couldn't put their hands in the dirt and plant all the wonderful plants we had intended, but they still got to have that access. And then kind of following up on that, really trying to drive our parents and our teachers to our Facebook platform, where we've used it to not only create original content on various topics to keep students engaged and help kind of parents break it down and support their students at home, but also have a great platform for sharing our partners' materials. So one of the items that performed really well on our social media was the WHC webinars, especially the kid-friendly webinars. So really trying to utilize all the great partnerships that we have, all the material that we, and content that we've created over the years, and still trying to engage and, still trying to weave in those small moments where we can, socially distance and see our students, even if they're just picking up a lunch and maybe picking up a backpack with the materials, but still get that opportunity to experiment at home. And then, a parent permitting, if they can go online and view the virtual lab or check us out on Facebook.
Excellent. That's great to hear. They say the necessity is the mother of invention, right? So,
absolutely.
Developing all these new tools and so forth, they're still going to be there. Hopefully, when we get back to a sense of normalcy in the world, and it's kind of apropos also that technology has come to play such a role in to be able to continue STEM education during this pandemic. So Sounds like you guys at BASF are doing a great job there. Meredith, at OPG, how's the pandemic kind of impacted your STEM efforts, and has it created any opportunities for you guys?
Yeah, so it certainly has had an impact, as we were saying. You know, if people are sent home, if people aren't able to be in the classrooms, then it's harder to deliver those types of programming. But we have found you know, some opportunities or changes that, you know, for the time. So one of the things we did was we often have a few programs that run on our sites, like our Tuesdays on the Trail and our Take Part in Pickering events and things. And instead of doing those in person on sites, we instead, you know, ran webinars, or in the case of the Tuesday on the Trail, we actually created little like pickup packs. And so they had curbside pickup. The community would come, they'd pick up their little curbside activity, and they'd be able to take it home. And so similar to what Molly was saying for BASF, you know, we were able to have that go home with the students to be able to continue on with those activities that we would usually provide on our site. And then and yeah, we found that we got into more virtual connection with our partners, and I'm sure we'll be able to continue that, and sometimes, and hopefully we'll be able to get back into in person at a certain point, but not at the moment. And one of the things we did is we sponsored TV Ontario programming, and we had some of our employees participate in some of the segments for that. And so, for example, TVO's Fish Heads show, some of our employees were highlighted on the segment about lake sturgeon. So that was a really you know, great opportunity and interesting, and it might even reach a broader audience than we would have normally reached with our communications. And then one of the things that we started, you know, specifically because of COVID, was OPG School, which was what we started it's an internal media page called Yammer that we use, and we started a page on there that was dedicated to resources for employees who are parents with children at home, or grandchildren at home, or in some cases spouses who are teachers and were looking for material as well. And we shared some original material from OPG, but also a lot of our partners, including the WHC webinars, and we got a lot of great feedback from that. People really enjoyed that, and I don't know, for the parents, it was good to have something to share with your children sometimes.
Absolutely, I know that from personal experience. So that's great that you're doing all that. And to your point of being able to reach kind of a broader audience, I think all of us are aware that historically STEM careers have attracted primarily a male audience. So just wanted to give you opportunity if you have kind of any notes on what have you all done to design your programs to be more attractive and inclusive to both males and females. Molly?
Great. Yeah, definitely equal opportunity in terms of our kids' lab. So starting our program so young allows us to reach the students at an age where you know, they're not heading in one direction or another, and aren't intimidated by the topic. You know, so it's really genderless. You know, in terms of you know, everybody loves to make slime. Who doesn't? You know, I'm sure we all here on the phone today love to make slime. But certainly, you know, we have participated in programs, whether with our partners or sponsors, where we've had some specific opportunities to work with just young girls. There's some of our sites, you know, we have more than 100 sites across the U.S. That have, you know, some have engaged with our Girl Scout communities. And through you know, some of the programs that they're running either on site or at one of our partners, you know, we've developed a patch system where it's kind of, you know, something familiar. If you're a Girl Scout, you know, patches are a thing, right? So so providing that kind of gives them like encouragement to continue, but then also partnering with organizations that are focused on young ladies. One in particular, we had a company called Side Girls, which focused on STEM education for young ladies in the tween age. So a lot of the industry partners would, it would be a multi-day program, and each kind of industry partner would take a day and kind of highlight. So for the location that we were operating it in, it was near one of our mining locations. So the young ladies were able to come to the site and do one of our kids lab experiments that was focused on the environment. And I think that the topic was cleaning up water pollution. So they got to engage with some hands-on activities in the classroom, and then they got to go out to a mine and do a fossil dig. So just really finding those right partners that are going to allow us to really broaden our reach. And then also too, when we're looking at our high school programs, when we're recruiting, some of these are application-based programs, is to ensure that we have an equal number of men and women that are going to participate in the program. So it's giving everybody an equal shot. So we put some kind of restrictions on our application process to make sure we're getting both a pool of females and males that are going to hopefully participate in the program. So we're ensuring that. And then also too, another aspect for employee engagement is to find those folks that have those careers that are in need, where we want to see our students pursue. And then, finding a young woman that can speak to her experiences and showing that, it's not engineering or, being a lab technician or a plant operator. These aren't, these are achievable goals and rewarding, and you can have a wonderful career. And so, for that kind of one moment in time where you're a young learner in our Kids Lab program, or if you're in a pollinator garden planting and having fun, kind of take that experience and still continue it and have a worthwhile career. No matter if you're male or female or whoever you identify as.
Absolutely. I think a lot of our folks here in kind of the description of that are watching right now are kind of jealous. We want to participate in some of those activities that you mentioned here. So that's
sure. Come on down.
Sita, how about at Summit Materials? Do you look at who's coming through there and making sure that it's attractive to all audiences?
Yeah, Rob, I feel like we do think about this. We talk about women in engineering and women in STEM a lot. And I think, as a construction company, we struggle with that with our own staff to some degree. I mean, we definitely try to get women involved with a lot of the STEM programs. I think like Molly said, I think it really helps to show, there's women who are working here, and here's what I do, and let me tell you about. And I personally, have a lot of fun communicating with various groups, down to our intern program, and students who are on site as well. So I think some of it comes from the company employees. And then, we have participated in programs like helping give funds to women, girls in STEM award programs and stuff like that at local schools. And I think, another thing that we work on, which is not necessarily women, but I think diversity and inclusion are both really important parts of STEM. And we try to do a lot of work in some of the underprivileged communities where we work in. So there's a few that come to mind, and there's some schools that are, just having a harder time getting their students to show up on time. And, we do a lot of work that might not be necessarily considered STEM, but definitely is supportive work, and trying to get our employees in to do some reading and, making sure that the kids feel supported by the company in their community is another really important part. So I think we have work to do yet in this regard as a company, and also with our STEM programs. But I think that we are broadening that into a couple of different facets that I feel are still valuable.
Absolutely, and that's the great things about these types of programs. They're also a learning experience for the educator, and you get to refine those over time, right? So excellent. Meredith, how about an OPG?
So our programs have always been inclusive, but as as more research and such came to light around, the age at which you need to engage women in STEM to have them actually view that as a career, we have adjusted our some of our programming to hit more of the elementary age programming, as well as our high school and university programming, which we had originally been more involved in. So that's definitely one where we adjusted, as you say, like you learn and you get the feedback, and you adjust your program to better suit your community, all of it. And we also have like scholarships for STEM, which would apply for women, or also ones for our Indigenous people. And then we have partnered with some organizations, for instance, like Girls Inc., on specifically women in STEM programming. Yeah, so you get that mix by being aware of what's going on in your community and listening to that feedback, and then you adjust your program accordingly. But we have definitely got to focus. And I would say, just like Molly and Sita, our employees are a big benefit to us in this, because we have lots of women in STEM roles and STEM careers in the company, and those individuals will definitely, some of them will take that opportunity to go and speak to schools, speak to the community, depending sometimes on biodiversity related things, and sometimes on more technical topics.
Excellent, and that's great. And I think you all have shared a great bit of experience so far during this panel session, but I just wanted to kind of do a quick round before we open it up to kind of a more formal Q&A session. But kind of given your experience thus far, what would be your advice to someone listening to this discussion today that who sees the benefit of STEM education offerings, but doesn't really know how to get started? Maybe their company's not, as far along in the thinking as your companies are. And any advice? We can start with you, Meredith.
So one of the things I'd say is start small. It's always easier to bite off a small piece than a big one. So yeah, I think start small, find a partner. There are lots of organizations out there that are working in these areas and who are looking for that, for extra support or for those partners. And so find those people. They'll be great assets. They'll be able to help you and guide you and give experience. Talk to your community about what they're looking for, what they perceive as the needs with regards to biodiversity in your or STEM in general in your community, and tie to your company's core values. You're going to need buy-in from your management lines and the whole company for this, and so you want to make sure that you've shown the business benefit, you've tied it to your company's core values, because that's what's going to make a program that will be sustainable within your company. And then leverage the strength of your people, of your company. Use the skills that you have, and I think Molly and Sita have spoken to that as well in some of our answers, where we definitely lean on the skills and the passions and sometimes those unknown strengths of individuals.
I think that's sage advice, Meredith. I really do. Setting yourself up for success will only help to further grow the program down the road, right? So having that early success by starting small, working with good partners, leveraging the right people, and so forth, puts you in a good position to continue the program down the road. Molly, how about you? What do you think some advice is maybe to somebody listening today that's thinking about getting this started?
First of all, to Meredith's points, I wholeheartedly ditto all of those points that you've made. But I mean, one thing I'd want to stress, and in the 10 years I've been with BASF in this program, kind of a real pride point for what BASF offers is, don't just stamp your name on a program and be done with it. Just don't, put it in a box and say that's it. Really, you want to find what value you can add to the community, what value you can add to a teacher that they can't find, by a Google search or a textbook. You know, and then that comes with, you know, involving your employees. Being involved, you know, not to be involved at every small, you know, minutia of the program, but not just giving the program away to just run on its own. You know, check in with your partners. You know, develop that dialogue and that relationship, and adapt. You know, if they need something, you know, there's, you know, it should be, the dialogue should be there to help adapt and provide value. And then don't try to be all things to all people, you know, especially if you're starting off, to go back to Meredith, start small, right? You know, adopt a class. You know, start, you know, pick the age group, adopt a class. Don't try to take on kindergarten through 8th grade in your, you know, in your first attempt at writing curriculum. You know, just start by, you know, being there for a science fair. You know, there's small things, you know, set up a table, a demonstration table at a community fair. There's so many small things that you can do to kind of get your foot in the door. And then, you know, to echo back to partnerships, right? So don't try to take on a school system all by yourself. If there's a reputable partner out there that has an in, you know, we see this in our Canadian organization. You know, it's very hard for a chemical company to get into the school system, but through our contracted partner, they're already a well-established traveling science program that works with the school. So the connection's already there, and then it's just finding your way to add value.
Absolutely. You know, I think that's a great lesson, is, you know, what you focus on is what you win at. So to your point, not trying to be everything to everyone, but set those clear goals and really hit the target on those goals. That's excellent. Sita, any words of advice for folks that are thinking about getting a program up and running, but, you know, they haven't jumped into to the deep end yet?
You know, I think I'm just going to take Molly's advice and start small. I mean, I think everything that was spoken here is really effective, and I love the idea of adopting a classroom. In fact, I was like, I want to do that.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate everybody that's starting to send in some questions. We have some good ones here. Jessica asks, we often draw on our same volunteers over and over. Does your company formally take volunteer biodiversity work into consideration during performance evaluation time? Maybe Sita, you want to start that?
I'll take that one, because we've had the same issue, and so we implemented a few things this year. So we have a program that allows our companies to get benefit or reduced prices on their health insurance if they do all of these other health aspects. And so one of the things that we included as a part of that this year was 4 hours of volunteering, so on company time. So everybody had access to 4 hours of volunteering, and then if they did that, they could get some points that would help them contribute to reducing their monthly health insurance costs. So that's just one tool that we used. All of the other gals go as well.
Meredith, how about, are there any, you know, kind of beyond the obvious ones, any perk to OPG volunteers when it comes time for their annual reviews, or kudos in some way?
Yeah, so we, similar to the individual asking the question, and to Sita, we do have a little bit of that, where, you know, you have those mainstay people who are the backbone of your program, the volunteers and things. But yeah, we have the company has what we call a VIA system, so values in action recognition cards, and so often we'll give those out to employees who are helping the biodiversity programs as recognition of that work and effort. We also, and in your annual review with your manager, of course, that would be a conversation of a topic of conversation, although it's not necessarily in everybody's case a formal part of their work planning or anything. And then we also have some other internal awards recognition programs where the biodiversity programs and volunteerism can be recognized as well. And for an example, one of my colleagues is working on a program with goats eating Phragmites, an invasive species for us, and first time that we know of where it's being done by a corporation in Ontario, and so that individual has been sort of nominated for one of our internal awards for this innovative program that's helpful to our operations and to biodiversity.
That's excellent recognition, and you're going to have to report back to us how the Phragmites goat experiment went. I think there's a lot of attentive ears, folks out there dealing with Phragmites. And
well,
so,
I think we've submitted it for next year's conference topics. So.
Okay, excellent. I will try to be at that session. Excellent. Molly, how about a BASF? Is there any formal incentive for participating in these types of projects?
We do have a recognizing you is what it's called platform that can reward employees, but typically we don't kind of want to lead off with, okay, well, you're going to get points if you come to do a program. Kind of defeats the whole volunteering purpose. Although there sometimes, if we're at a very large event and folks are really giving their all, staying for a long period of time and really seeing, sometimes we could see 300 kids at an event. So it's quite a task. So there's definitely times where points are warranted. But we do have several employee affinity groups that have, in their charter, have a giving platform where they choose to do several or partner with an organization to give back in volunteering. So we try to find, some way where we can kind of marry the two. So let's say if it's, there's an organization called Neighborhood House. It's a community organization, gives back to families in need. So perhaps we can partner with our Women in Business group that's going to partner with the Neighborhood House and then we somehow incorporate some STEM education initiative. So therefore, it gives us like a new pool of volunteers to work with. Of course, there's some overlap because folks belong to more than one organization. But then also we have an internship program where there is, I believe it, at least in the first half of my time with BASF, there was a requirement. I believe it was 4 to 6 hours a quarter where folks would have to give their time as part of their development because, this was a rotational internship program. So it was a way for folks to get to know their community, whether it was, going to one organization and giving your time over your stay, or, we announced our event. Sometimes we need lots of volunteers for our events. So we announce those opportunities in our newsletter. So trying to draw from that crowd too. But we certainly have our legends in the volunteer world that come out to every event and don't miss one. But yeah, definitely trying to find new ways to engage employees because it could be, you definitely don't want to have volunteer fatigue, right? So.
Yeah, I think these are all great avenues to get volunteerism, as you've described. We've even seen, and you've alluded to it here, just offering different levels of engagement from volunteers because, some folks are going to be more committed and kind of your hardcore volunteers, and others need that, that less committed gateway project to get involved, and maybe they come over to the other side eventually, right? So. I think that's excellent. I think we have time probably for one more question. Well, William asks, what is AdoptAClassroom and what does that program look like?
Okay, so to adopt a class, it's a term that prior to my days at BASF, I worked in Science Center. So that was kind of what we coined our the Adopt a Class program that we had there. Would be a corporation would work with the museum there's some level of funding involved with that. And through the museum's network, they would allow for these students to come to the museum for free on behalf of, BASF or whatever corporation, insert corporation name, right? In terms of like how I've kind of been rolling out these Adopt a Class offerings, right? We partner with various museums and science centers. And through those organizations, they kind of pick the school level and then try to align our programs to the core curriculum standards to kind of make it more valuable for the students. So in essence, we're adopting a whole grade level. But just for starting small, that example I gave earlier about the kind of drive-through backpack pickup, that was one school in probably 5 or so miles from our site. That has, a very diverse community. A lot of the students, if you looked at the demographics, a lot of the students are receiving that free and reduced lunch. So it just was a natural fit. Some folks that worked at our site, they may have children in that school district if they do live in close proximity. But it's kind of a developed relationship over time. How to do it, go out and try to find a connection at the school. Usually the principal is, if you're not going to reach out to a superintendent of a district, if you're looking for that just one school, making contact with the principal is a great place to start. Or if you know a PTA, PTC, PTO president, that's also another avenue to meet. Ask your employee base. If it's a community school that maybe some of your employees' children go to, you might find another avenue to get in. But that's the easy way to kind of make your pitch. And as you're developing content, you can it could be something for as simple as underwriting a field trip for the students, or getting them involved in a pollinator garden at your site, or if you do have curriculum or you want to have a career career event where you have someone come in and do a fun hands-on experiment, let's pick slime or something to that effect. They can also go in and talk a little bit about careers and kind of really build that community partnership. So it could be anything that you want it to be, but I would say start close to home, start to close where your site footprint is, and kind of look out from there to see what schools are in your neighborhood that would warrant a good connection.
Perfect. And again, I think that's great advice, and all of you have given great advice here today. And I want to thank everybody watching right now for the flood of questions that we've received, and apologies that we can't get to them all here during this session, but I think that's a positive sign that there's a lot of interest in folks out there that want to get a STEM project up and running. So that is great to see. We are quickly running out of time here, but I did want to thank you all once again, Meredith, Molly, Sita, for the work that you do on a day-to-day basis, and certainly for joining the panel discussion here today. And with that, I'd like to thank Lehigh Hanson once again for sponsoring this session. And I'd like to turn it over one last time to WHC President Margaret O'Gorman.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you very much. And let me add my thanks to Molly, Meredith, and Sita. You are all legends in the WHC world in terms of the work that you do. So your content was inspiring and practical in equal measures, which is great. So thanks, Rob, for facilitating such a good panel. Sadly, we are at the end of our wonderful event. I hope you made some connections. I hope you learned something new. I hope you at least took a break from your day-to-day work. Before we go, I do have some people to thank, so please bear with me one moment. I can see how many people are on here, so don't leave. So first off, thank you to the team at Wildlife Habitat Council. Every single team member at WHC contributed to the success of this effort. For example, Doreen Davis gave us access to her extensive plant collection for our backgrounds, which I hope you enjoyed. But it was really our C3 team, our content communications and corporate relations team, led by our Chief Marketing Officer, Monica Keller, and ably assisted by Melissa, Patricia, and Dan, that really personified WHC Connect, pulled it together You know, they did it with WHC's values and a 2020 pivot to produce this great event at a very short time scale. So thank you, guys. Thank you to the exhibitors for bringing your content and for engaging with attendees. Thank you to all of our speakers. I think all the panel presentations were interesting, enlightening, and informative. Over the past 2 days, WHC connected with, we reached 600 people from 17 countries, from as far away as Australia and Indonesia to our closest neighbors, Mexico and Canada, and a smattering of European countries like Switzerland, the UK, and Ireland, all in attendance. And you also generated 9,000 interactions and engagements on our event platform. So you were talking to each other, which is great. So a word about next year. We really want to meet in person next year. We have a tentative date set for June in Baltimore. We would like to make this date, but as I said earlier, 2021 has no blueprint. It's all up to us whether that can happen next year or not. Listen to the science, wear the masks, maintain the distances. But bear with us for 2021. Put it in your budget anyway, but we hope we can have it, but that's the situation. I want to congratulate all our deserving award winners from the last 2 days. Great programs were recognized, and it was really nice to see the reach across industry sectors, the reach across landscapes, styles, the reach across ecosystems and programs. So it was a really diverse set of award-winning winners from the last 2 days. So thank you very much for that. And finally, I have to give a final thanks to our sponsors. Our platinum sponsor is ExxonMobil. Gold sponsors include Exelon, Ontario Power Generation, and Toyota. Our silver sponsors are Bacardi, BASF, Chemours, Chevron, DTE Energy, Freeport-McMoRan, and Koch Industries. And our general sponsors are Ernst Seeds, Lehigh, Hanson, and Vulcan Materials. So thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to you for attending this event. Be well, be happy, and get into nature because the doctor ordered it. Thank you very much and have a great day.